Hi there Guardians, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at part 2 of my high level Titan builds. This one is focused on ground based enemies and is really good fun. Okay, so if you haven't seen part 1, the link is in the description and that is a high-end Titan build for airborne enemies. However, today we're keeping our feet on the ground, quite literally. Now hopefully this is going to be quite a quick video, hopefully around the 10-minute mark, as we've covered a lot of the principles of this build in part 1, so it's just going to be a recap. But let's get cracking and look at our exotic armour. So we're going to be taking the Pyrogale Gauntlets, and what these do is modify your Burning Maul super into a single one-slam attack. And that attack will then cause 650% increased damage, and it increases 3 tracking waves that will create cyclones when they come into contact with an enemy. These also have quite good tracking, so if you're dealing with waves of adds rather than a single point of damage, i.e. a boss, it's really useful. Now those waves apply 20 stacks of Scorch, however, if we couple it with Ember of Ashes, this jumps to 60 stacks of Scorch on impact, and then the released cyclones deal 20 damage over time, and that's every 0.2 seconds, and each time it applies 3 additional Scorch stacks every half second. If we look now at our subclass, we're going to begin with the Burning Maul super, quite obviously as we're using the Pyrogales, it'd be useless with Hammer of Sol. We're going to take a Towering Barricade so we can produce our own cover in a pinch, and obviously the Throwing Hammer for our melee, and I would recommend a Healing Grenade if you're running solo. If you're in a fire team, look to either the Solar Grenade or the Fusion Grenade. Our aspects will begin with Roaring Flames, which grants a stacking bonus for our abilities based on ability or ignition kills, and the Sol Invictus. And the Sol Invictus means that any Hammer of Sol impacts or defeating a Scorched target will create a Sunspot. Now while we're in that Sunspot, our abilities regenerate faster, our super drains more slowly, and the Sunspot also applies Scorch to enemies and grants us restoration ×1, so it's a really powerful aspect. For our fragments, we're going to begin with Ember of Ashes, which increases the number of Scorch stats we apply by 50% in most cases. However, as already mentioned, the Pyrogale Gauntlets actually cause that to jump massively for our little cyclones on the super, so that jumps from 20 to 60. We're going to take Ember of Torches, which means powered melee attacks against any combatant will make you and any nearby allies radiant. Obviously the allies are less of an issue if you're running solo. We're going to take Ember of Char, where solar ignitions will spread Scorch to affected targets. And we're also going to take Ember of Empyrean, so solar weapon or ability final blows will extend the duration of our restoration and radiance effects. Now, as it's after March the 5th, this now tops out at 15 seconds. Moving on to our armour stats, obviously we want 100 resilience for the 30% damage reduction and the massive increase in class ability regeneration. However, second and third priority are interchangeable depending on the activity you're doing. So, if you're doing the Warlords Ruin, I would recommend you go for 100 intellect. Now, I know most people will be sat thinking, DJ, what the hell are you talking about? Who cares about intellect? Well, for example, on the Locus of Wailing Grief, better known to the rest of the world as the second boss in Warlords, with 100 intellect, I'm able to consistently get off 2 supers during the damage phase, and that's without really trying. However, if you want to move away from intellect, and hey, it's completely your choice, this is your Titan, you want to go for discipline. Everything else, keep above 30. I know a lot of people are going to be wondering about recovery. Not really an issue, as we have the Healing Nade for instant cure, and restoration. We also have restoration and Empyrean going, so as long as we keep killing, we have got that constant healing going. Looking now to our seasonal artifact, obviously first column, take whatever champion mods you want, as we just need to hit 3 to get into column 2. In column 2 we want to begin with Kindling Trigger, where Radiant causes solar weapons to apply Scorch stacks to unscorched enemies. Now this applies 30 Scorch stacks or 45 with Ember of Ashes to PvE combatants that aren't already scorched, which is quite tasty. If you're doing Warlords Ruin, I would also recommend From Whence You Came, which increases your ability damage against Scorn and Taken combatants. If you're not doing Warlords, it's completely dealer's choice on what your second perk in column 2 is. In column 3 we're going to begin with Flint Striker. Now what this does is mean that rapid solar precision hits and rapid solar weapon final blows will grant us Radiant, and this actually starts at 10 seconds, which is tasty. We're also going to take Torch, so while we're Radiant, we deal 5% increased weapon damage against any enemies that are affected by Strand or Stasis debuffs. We're going to take Wished Interbeing, which means that when our super is almost fully charged, i.e. over 80%, any ability kills will spawn 3 orbs of power. However, there is quite a long activation cooldown here, and no one's 100% sure how long it is, but it does seem to be 15 plus seconds. Okay, moving into column 4, we want to begin with Unravelling Orbs, where picking up an Orb of Power will grant us 7 seconds of Unravelling rounds for our Strand weapons. We're going to take Revitalizing Blast, where causing damage with a solar ability will weaken champions and or bosses for a short duration. That short duration is actually 6 seconds. And then in column 5, Rays of Precision, so while we're Radiant, solar precision final blows will cause combatants to ignite. And, assuming we're solo, a solo operative, which will increase weapon and ability damage against all combatants by 15% while we are solo. If you were in a fire team, I would suggest Heart of the Flame, which means that our solar super will do increased damage for every ally that's nearby, and also casting our super will grant those allies Radiance. For our weapons, I would recommend a Scatter Signal Strand Fusion in our kinetic slot, though anything Strand is going to work, personal preference. For our energy slot, I personally love Zalu's Bane, and I know I've pronounced that wrong because I can never say it right, apologies. If you don't have the Zalus, the Epochal Integration is a very solid alternative. And then in our heavy slot, we want the Dragon's Breath rocket launcher. This thing is amazing in this build. And this brings us onto our mod setup. So on the helmet, we're going to take Double Harmonic Siphon, and this gives us an improved Orb of Power for multiple solar weapon kills. And we're going to take a Heavy Ammo Finder. On the arms, I would recommend a Harmonic Loader and a Heavy Handed. The Harmonic Loader gives us plus 10 reload speed on any solar weapon and also speeds up the reload animation by 15%, and Heavy Handed means that we will generate orbs of power for any melee final blows. However, remember, this has a 10-second cooldown when we're only using one. On our chest, use whatever damage resistance mods are applicable to the activity you're undertaking. On our legs, we're going to begin with a Recuperation, which restores 70 HP of health on an Orb of Power pickup. We're going to take a Solar Weapon Surge, which grants us a 10% boost to solar weapon damage whenever we have an armor charge. And then a Harmonic Scavenger, so that we can keep picking up extra heavy ammo for every brick. And then on our class item, I personally take Double Time Dilation. However, you may want to tweak this around instead of taking the second. I just like having the additional armor charge time, as 3 stacks at 18 seconds each will cover any boss damage phase. Your gameplay loop is very simple. Kill something with your hammer to trigger restoration, and then just get kills. This will extend your restoration and your radiance thanks to Ember of Empyrean. However, the real loop comes when we get into DPS. And although this loop is very simple, it does take a little bit of messing around to get the timing down. But essentially, we fire a rocket, instantly cast our super, hit the super out, 2 shots from Scatter Signal, by which point our Dragon's Breath should have reloaded. Fire another rocket, 4 blasts from Scatter Signal, another rocket, 4 from Scatter Signal. And there we have it, Guardians. That is my high-level content Solar Ground Attack Titan. Now, I used this for Encounters 1 and 2 in Warlords Ruin Solo Flawless. I've used it in all sorts of other content, including GMs. I did the first boss of Ghost of the Deep with this. It's just a massive DPS dealing monster. I'd just like to thank Dr. Strange and BeVeryOFA from my Discord for help capturing the footage for this video. If you've enjoyed this and are interested in more Destiny 2 content, please drop a like and maybe even subscribe. You'll massively be helping with the channel growth. But until next time, Guardians, whatever you're doing, I hope you have a fantastic day.